Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are tuning in on the show on social media and Facebook. We appreciate that. It is a podcast, so we do the podcast here in the studio, typically Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, depending on everyone's schedule, and then it goes out as a podcast. So be sure to download it. If you're watching the show or someone passed it on to you, download the podcast. You could do that at iTunes, Stitcher, the website, anywhere. Just go online and type in Real Estate Radio Live. For almost 9 years, the focus has been education and information. We'll continue to do that, and that's we've had a lot of success doing the show and really just providing people with as much education and information so that they make wise decisions in and around the real estate. That's the simplest way to describe it. So we'll continue to do that. Mike and I typically do now Tuesdays. Let me see if I get this right. We did Wednesdays for so long, so now it's Tuesday.
But it's Thursday.
But it's Thursday, just in case.
We're all over the place.
You never know what day it is and when we're doing it. But anyway, today we're going to talk a little bit about out-of-state investing. We did that last week, but this is maybe kind of a part two or an addition to what we did.
More comprehensive.
Yeah, there's
list.
a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's certainly a lot to know. And before we dive in, just a side note, and we'll say this throughout the show, is just make sure you get a lot of feedback, information, introductions, referrals, people who have done this, that know this, to have some background and experience. It's like anything. If it's too good to be true, be careful with a lot of the stuff you see online or on TV. A lot of people are trying to sell programs and CDs and monthly costs. Just sign up for $4.99 a month, and we'll give you this for the rest of your life. And you just have to be really careful. So be careful when you do that.
Did I just say it's Thursday? It is Tuesday, actually.
It is Tuesday.
Yeah. Shows you how much I'm in.
I was just going to say, those that are listening, they're going, this is a real confident group.
Yeah.
Is it Tuesday? Is it Thursday? I'm not sure when it is. Anyway, so investing out of state like they're going to trust us now.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys don't even know what day it is. Yeah. We can't talk about goddamn real estate now.
Oh, man.
Anyway, we will do our best. So we're going to talk mostly about out-of-state investing, but also what I like to do is just add a little tidbit. Maybe we'll do it at the end, Mike, and that is just to remind everyone just what a great market it is right now.
Yeah.
Whether you're getting ready to list, great time to do that. Why? Because low inventory, and there's a chance you get a premium.
Mm-hmm.
Great time to buy. You might say, why? Is it both? Well, because, inventory should be coming up in the next 90 to 120 days. So what that means, if you're prepared, pre-approved, ready to go, you're going to be in better shape to make an offer, to get that started. And there's a lot of programs that helps people facilitate some of the unique financing. So it's just a great market, and interest rates now, with partly due to the help of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Rates are now pretty close to all-time lows. I mean, we were close, and we're getting really close. I mean, it's just about there.
Wow.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Good time to take advantage of that. But,
absolutely.
So out-of-state investing, I think last week we kind of gave an idea. You talked about some of the things to look at. We
focused on some more metropolitan areas and whatnot. Now I kind of want to get into, okay, you've decided this is something you want to focus on.
Right.
And so what is the investor checklist, I guess you want to call it, things that mark off your checklist in order to start that whole process? Okay. Well, the first thing is to know your strategy and goals before purchasing a property. So what does that mean? Again, we've talked about it before a lot. It means, okay, are you really looking for purely cash flow play? Mm-hmm. Do you want cash flow and appreciation? Do you want only appreciation? So there's things that you need to really look at and analyze as far as that's concerned.
Right.
And there's different markets for different things.
Right.
And so I think that's one. And then also the strategy of management, fix-ups, all that stuff. What's going to be your strategy in assembling that type of a team?
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
Very good.
Yep.
So what? How do you want to get us kicked off here?
So no, that's the first one.
Okay.
Okay. So then we go into the next one. Then talk about financing.
Yeah.
So you could talk about this, but how are you going to finance? Are you going to get do you need to get a loan? Are you going to buy cash?
Right.
Where's the cash coming from? So financing is important, and you definitely need to speak to Joe, lender, and talk about financing in all these states. So maybe you can talk on what is that, what's entailed in that.
It's a good point. Financing is most of the time the biggest kind of issue or challenge around, or potential time-consuming, or if you want to look at it as an irritation around purchasing. Or so in general, one of the things to be careful about, I think we touched on it last week, is that if you're financing properties like this, and especially let's say maybe the purchase price is $100,000, you have to really be careful. And this is where a lot of preparation and kind of proactive work helps. In that, a lot of banks, traditional banks, do not like loans under $100,000.
Right, yeah.
It sounds funny. Most people are like, "What, are you kidding me?"
Yeah, they don't.
The reason why is because they're not really sellable. Most banks raise capital. A lot of people, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but most banks, the way they raise capital and keep revenue flowing is they sell 40 to 50% of their loans, and that's how they keep capital running, raising money, doing their own warehouse, things like that. So a lot of the smaller loans, no one wants to buy them. And so what I would say, first, if you're looking to finance something, let's just call it $100,000, and maybe you're just putting 30-40% down, so maybe you need a loan for 40 or 50 grand. I know it sounds funny, but still, in other parts of the United States, that doesn't sound so funny. Here it sounds funny.
Yeah, it's normal in a lot of parts of the country.
So what I would say, Mike, for those that are looking to finance that amount and that loan amount, I would seriously do what I would do personally, even though you could call the typical major lenders and see if they'll do it well, as B of A, Chase, Citi, and all that. Here's what I would do. I would encourage you to go to the city that you're buying the house and go to a community bank, and that's going to be your best bet, not only because they want your business and they want the revenue and they want to be able to, they want their numbers to increase and grow in population in terms of, they show a lot of data that says, hey, more and more people are banking, moving to this area, etc. The reason I bring that up is that there is a likelihood that you're going to get a better deal and they're going to take better care of you in a local bank. Let's say you're buying in Cleveland or Detroit. Yeah. There is a better chance that if you go to a community local bank within that community of where you're buying, that they're going to treat you better and probably have decent rates or programs and costs, and encourage that because that's their community.
And what do you think about the appraisal standpoint of that? Do you think that makes a difference by working with the community bank, or not really? No,
I think licensed appraisers are licensed appraisers, and they go through the same guidelines. And there's always people that review appraisals and stuff within the lending or financial institutions. I wouldn't worry so much about that. Anyway, that would be my recommendation. As much as I could do loans in any states, I think, except New York and Hawaii. So we could do loans in any state. But I could tell you, if it's a loan that's less than $100,000, and I'm just being honest, and it's something like that, you are better off going to likely a community bank or someone that specializes in those types of loans. And
then what if someone wants to buy multiple properties that equates to over $100,000?
Yeah, it's a good point. So let's say you're buying 10 properties and you want to put 30% down on each of them or something. Yeah, same thing. And this is the reason why it probably makes more sense to go to a bank and do them all at one place. The most frustrating, difficult thing would be is, try not to do that with a bunch of different banks. That's just going to be a nightmare for everybody. Yeah. For the whole transaction.
Yeah, it will.
So,
especially for you, and you don't want to create your own nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is, I'll say this for people, because I hear this sometimes, Mike, some people say, hey, I just want to pay cash, and then later on I'll take a loan on it. And that's okay, but just understand that when you take a loan on that property later, some will give you like 6 months, and they'll do what's called delayed financing. Sometimes you could get favorable pricing and rates on delayed financing. Let's say you purchase it cash, and then 3 months later you put a loan on it. No big deal. Probably get pretty decent rates. But you let it go any longer, and then what they're going to do, Mike, is they're going to consider it a cash-out refinance. Yeah, right. On a non-owner rental property. So, again, on $50,000 loan, you might be thinking, Joe, it's not that much. But, it could be the difference in, a 0.5% to 1% in interest rate, and it could be a little more costly. So just something to think about. Yeah. If you really ultimately want to loan on those properties, I would try, if you could, to do it during the purchase transaction, then later on down the road.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, that's good on the lending side of things. So the next one is if you're performing a 1031 exchange, make sure you do your market research way in advance, because as people know that have heard us say 1031 exchange before, you have a certain amount of time to identify. It's 45 days and 180 days to close it. So what that means is you sell a property in California, once that property closes, you have 45 days to identify up to 3 replacement properties and close on one of them.
Right.
And a way to kind of cheat that system a little bit, it's not rocket science, is to start looking before you close the property you're selling.
Right.
Give yourself a little 21-day, 30-day buffer, or even negotiate a longer close of escrow on the property you're selling, like a 60-day. Then that should give you plenty of time to go out and find a replacement property if you're using a 1031 exchange.
Yeah, do you wonder if that'll ever change? I know that's a tough point, and I guess it is what it is, and there's reasons behind it, but that clock, is it because there's a tax benefit and they don't want it just laying around for a period of time?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And Ron, our 1031 guy, will probably know the better answer to that, but I think that's a part of it. And the 1031 industry is under constant fire. Yeah. In fact, the most recent tax changes that we had in the was it 2017 or 2018?
18, I think.
18.
Yeah.
One of the things that they changed on the exchange side is just making it for property, because 1031 exchanges used to be for kind of anything investment. Like if you owned a cattle, you can exchange those into other cattle. If you owned a helicopter, you could sell that and exchange it into another helicopter or artwork or whatever. But all that went away, and now it's just for real estate. So, and then there's other exchanges people probably know, like if they've sold some investment, like a SEP or a Roth, that you can exchange that into. I think it's a 1035 or something. Okay. But anyways, I'm going on a tangent. But the point is that the exchange industry is under constant. They're always like a topic that comes up when tax reform comes up, because it is a significant way that the government can collect revenue if they got rid of it. Right. Think about the amount of money in taxes are deferred every year by using exchanges.
Good point.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool.
No, one of the things that we'll touch on, too, kind of back and forth, the financing part, and got me thinking when you just said the tax, because obviously the whole idea of the 1031 is just to keep deferring until you actually have to sell. Maybe some people don't ever, right? I mean, they pass on to their relatives or family or trusts and all these kinds. So even more reason, Mike, if someone needs cash to buy more property, or maybe you're leveraging something or whatever you need. I mean, one of the cool things about pulling money out of an investment property is, again, you could get a loan on it, and there's likely, I can't speak to the CPA, if there's any benefits for mortgage interest and things like that. Yeah. But the point is, you could leverage that appreciating asset by pulling money from it and still not have a tax event.
Yeah, right. You could.
That's what just get people thinking about that. So let's say you have 10 properties and they're all owned free and clear, and you're thinking, God, man, I wish I had $500,000 to make a move on this property, or go buy this property here, or do this for whatever it is. I mean, think about it. You could pull money out of one or all of those properties, collectively get your $500,000, go make a move, and again, that's not a taxable event. No. Until you sell those properties and take gains.
Correct.
On it, right?
Yeah. And typically, what you want to do, though, is based on what you take that money out at, what percentage, you should buy something that's going to give you a better return.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah,
if your rate's at 4.5%, you should. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. But again, I think the point you're making is a great point.
Yeah,
is that it isn't a taxable event. And I literally just had this conversation with a gentleman today with the portfolio, and he was talking. He had a great point. Is like this money that you're gaining in appreciation. Yeah, it's great, but you can't enjoy it until you enjoy it, until you use it.
Right.
It's just kind of it's sitting there. But so why not? Sometimes if you can leverage that appreciation, the equity that you have, and take out a loan or whatever to go buy something that make your money work for you, it's not a bad play.
Right. No, it's really
It's just got to make sense. And then the other piece to that, and I would caution him too, is don't over leverage yourself either. You know, don't take too much out.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And probably have a plan to pay it back quickly too. You know, so
yeah. No, to put together the other thing I would do, and this is great. You could do it on your own now. Obviously, the spreadsheets, the calculators, everything exists online. I mean, it's so cool when you think about it. One of the neat things, Mike, and I've seen people do that really have been investing in out-of-state property and cash flow property for years, is they have a spreadsheet or a system in place, and any time they can go in and plug in the numbers and find out not only what's happening, what they're making, the nets, the caps, all that stuff, but even more important, like a lot of people will then say, what does this look like over the next 10, 15, 20 years? In other words, if your goal is to own all those free and clear so that at the end of 10 years you have $25,000 net income from those properties going forward.
Absolutely.
By paying off those liens. Yeah. Then those are the things to try to do and set your goals and objectives for that.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before. There's nothing ever perfect. There's nothing ever for sure. But if you're in it for the long term, I just think it's hard to lose, and I know it depends on the location, if you have to sell and all that, so I'll put a little asterisk next to this conversation. There's always these little things that happen. But my point is, unless someone comes up with, down the road, where there's floating homes in space, you know what I'm getting at.
Sure.
Someone always needs a place to live. Someone always needs a place to rent. Someone's always going to want a place to buy. Yep. And there's businesses. Now, business is a little unique, right? Because a lot of people would say be careful with businesses and commercial, because even though in some areas it's booming, you could make an argument to be careful. In some areas, there's a lot of retail that's closing. Yeah. But we're talking about residential and kind of rental stuff right now in terms of the...
That's mainly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about my dad before the air. You bring up buying commercial out of state with him. He could go on he could do a podcast series.
We seriously need to get him on here.
Yeah,
seriously.
It'd be fun.
We'll just have to do the bleep button.
Yeah,
exactly. Actually, we don't have to bleep here on podcast.
Yeah, that's right. That's
good.
It's funnier with the bleep, though. But, yeah, I mainly focus on the residential side, because I do think investing in commercial, like strip centers and whatnot, out of state's a little bit more risky. It's more risky,
I think,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And some people might think differently, but hey, I'm the one on the podcast, so you listen to me. But no. But so the other thing I wanted to mention too is, and I think I said this last week, is I think it makes investing out of state better when you own multiple out of state or a handful or a certain amount, where the economies of scale work, where if you lose a tenant for a certain amount of time, it doesn't kill you, you know? As opposed to if you just buy, like if you go out there and buy one property in Detroit or one property somewhere, and then you lose a tenant, you're going to be crying the blues for however long you have that tenant. Whereas if you have 10, 12, 20 properties all pulling into the same funnel, it's not as bad. Right. You know, so I think that's something to keep in mind.
No, it is. This is it's a great opportunity. I think that the sooner the better. I look back, and the thing that I always wished, I wish I had bought more real estate, but I have some. As I look back, I think the one thing that I would have changed differently, and I say this a lot, and I think the reason I bring it up is because if you're just getting in a market, or maybe you're young and you have this goal and this focus to, acquire real estate over the next 10 or 15 years, I wish I would have bought more multi-unit, like duplexes, fourplexes, lived in one, rented the other, moved along.
I love that strategy.
Right? That's all. That would have been a really cool thing, smart thing to do, just because those are always good, and especially when they're around certain locations, obviously around here, but in other out-of-state locations too. A lot of different opportunities. Yep. I know we talked about some of the cities, locations. We gave them some ideas of, what might be. The one thing I would say is that be careful with. You see this all the time, that the 10 hottest cities for 2020, the best cities to retire in 2019, and all this kind of. Typically, remember, just like when the stock tip comes out, you got to be careful. Like a lot of times, media, although today's different, sometimes is immediate. But my point is, a lot of times when an article breaks about a study done, and this is the best place to retire, the best place to invest, be careful with that, because in some cases, this data is 6 months to a year old, and sometimes even more.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful that thinking the new shiny thing is really not the new shiny thing.
Well, it's always like the San Jose Merc, right? They always come out with something on real estate, and all of us in the real estate community are like, oh, glad they made it to the table finally. It's only been 3 to 6 months since that's happened, but it's true. And not to put them on blast, but I kind of am, whatever. The other thing about on going through this checklist is the whole team strategy. We mentioned it. We talked about it briefly last week, but really once you got everything in place, you've decided that you're going to do it, you've got the financing in place, now you really need to think about who's going to be your provider, I guess you'd call them in those areas, your turnkey provider.
Like or property manager?
The property management team, the rehab team, the team that helps find the properties, the real estate guy or whoever. And so, Joe, you've had plenty of these types of groups on the podcast and the radio in the past 10 years. And I have connections with them. So there are, excuse me, I'm a little stuffed up today. There are teams out there, and there's plenty of them across the country. Whether they're good or not is another question. Yeah. You got to really do your due diligence, get referrals, talk to people, and we have those connections too. So I think that's important. And the other thing and property managers are important because you can really get screwed out of state by a property manager. Yeah. You really can. So make sure you do your due diligence on that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we got a couple more minutes. This ultimately, I'll say as a summary about investing out of state, is I think there's always going to be opportunities, and just do your homework, get advice, look into some of the people that have done it before. There is nothing like even tagging on or learning from someone who has been through anything before. I mean, you hear it all the time. And some of us, just don't follow that advice, and we get into trouble. And there's no guarantee of anything. But if I had to make a recommendation for someone that's just getting started, just learn as much as you can. There's a ton of information online, but be careful with that.
Yeah.
But second, more importantly, I don't know what you think, Mike. More importantly, find someone that has done this out of state, has a track record, and not only could talk to you about it, but could show you, right? Like, look, here's my portfolio, guys. Over the last 15 years, this is what I've done in this state, and just educate yourself and walk through it.
Absolutely. Again, it goes with our whole theme, and really our theme of the program is the team aspect, and do your due diligence. One other thing on property management that it's kind of obvious, but I just want to say, review the statements each month. If you have a property manager managing multiple properties, review the statements each month, look at the expenses, and this seems very obvious, verify that the frickin' rents have hit your bank account.
No, I know.
Because sometimes if people are in a bad situation, they're not hitting the bank account. So that's important. And then I would add, and I have other things on this list, but we're hitting all the highlights. The last thing is, I recommend going and actually visiting where you're buying at the end of the day. And I'm not saying you have to fly all over the country, but I think if you're going to focus on an area, go visit, go drive around, drive the neighborhoods, meet people, meet the realtors, meet the property managers, meet the contractors. Do, the hand-to-hand, face-to-face thing, and I think you'll feel a lot better about your investment in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, as we close out, just remember, for those that are listening to the podcast, pass it along to others, friends, coworkers, family members. It is a incredible market. It's going to get I think this is going to be a really super busy market, real estate market, and rates are at all-time lows. So number one, real quickly, if you think you could benefit from a refinance, if your rates, believe it or not, if your rates as high as 3 7/8 or 3 3/4, it sounds funny, but you could get something better depending on if it's a long-term approach. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Number two, if you're a buyer, make sure you get pre-approved. We could help you with that at any time. Maybe you need to talk through a scenario. We could help you with that. And if you're a seller, either way, think about it and make sure you get the right real estate agent that helps you prepare that home and get it on the market, because it's a different market from both perspectives.
Yeah.
Anything for you?
No, it is. I think I couldn't agree more with that. If you are, let me give a quick example before we go. Have a seller, they knew they were going to sell in mid-March. They knew they wanted to move. We have been able to set up everything exactly to a T. As the day they move out, within 5 days, I'm having the property painted, carpeted, staged, photographed. Everything's going to happen within a few days.
That's great.
Hit the market and hit the ground running. And in the meantime, we were able to pre-market that property to select group of top brokers and the company I work at, which is a large market share. We were able to do a pre-market open house, had about a dozen groups through in the matter of 2 hours.
Wow.
And we might even get offers that he would be blown away by before that.
That's great.
So those are some strategies that you can implement if you don't make a last-second rash decision, like a lot of people do with the biggest investment of their life, which I don't understand. So there's a lot of things you can do if you plan ahead, I guess, is
absolutely
on that. So
plan ahead. Always for more information, you can reach me, Joe at RERadiolive.com or 408-838-9060. And Mike?
Yeah, Mike D'Ambrosio, 408-630-0101 is my number. MikeDcells.com is my website.
Very good. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, reach out if you have any questions or advice. We're here to help. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.